This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Sefer Daniel, Part 8. Let's review a little bit what we spoke about last week. Remember that we got up to the part where the Navi tells us, Sefer Daniel tells us, that there was this crier. There was a person who would scream really loud. All the people are gathered together in this valley. Now this was a big valley. This wasn't a small little valley. This massive valley, hundreds of thousands of people gathered. And this one man with the powerful voice that was so loud that everybody could hear him. And you know, when you're in a valley, there's an echo. You could hear it, and then you hear it again, and you hear it again. And this man scared everybody. In his loud voice, he said, when the orchestra begins to play, everyone has to now bow down. And whoever refuses to bow down will be thrown into a furnace. This is what he tells them. Now the Goyim, they're used to bowing down to idols. All the time they bow down to this idol. They see a new idol with wings. They say, okay, let's bow down to this one. Oh, this is a bigger one. It's a nicer one. I'm going to bow down to it. And they have no problem. So everybody heard the music. All of a sudden everyone bows down. But you think, bow down? No, this is not bowing down. This isn't bowing down. This is what we do in the tefillah. But the actual bowing down means all the way flat on the ground. All the way, like spread out, hands and legs. The whole place was lying on the ground. Every single person, the Jews had a problem. The Goyim didn't have a problem. They all bowed down. The Jews said, on the one hand, what are we going to do? Some people were so afraid, they didn't even come. They said, we don't know what's going to happen to us if we don't come, but we'll take those consequences, because if we come and we don't bow down, then it's for sure death. So some Jews said, we can't bow down, so we're not going to come to the party at all. Others were afraid. They said, how could we not come? Then we'll be punished for not coming. So they came, they said, all right, we cannot bow down because we're afraid of Nevuchadnetzar. So we're just going to bow down on the outside. But in our heart, we're going to be bowing down to God. So inside, they actually were thinking, we're bowing to God. But outside, it looked like they were bowing to the idol. So why the Gemara tells us, in Masechet Megillah, the Gemara says, that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai asked his students, he said to them, why did the Jews in the time of Mordechai and Esther deserve to be destroyed? You know that Haman made a decree against all the Jews. That means that it was planned from Shamayim, from heaven, that such a decree should happen. Why did the Jews deserve to be destroyed? What did they do wrong? So the student said, very simple. The Megillat Esther starts off by saying that they went to the party of Achashverosh. And Mordechai warned them not to go to the party. So they went to the party that they weren't allowed to go and participate in. That's why. So he said, no, it can't be. Because who went to the party? The party was in Shushan. The Jews of Shushan went to the party. So maybe they should have to have a punishment. But what about everybody else who didn't go to the party, wasn't in Shushan? So they said, Rabbeinu, we don't know. Tell us. He said, I'll tell you. Because 20 years earlier, 50 years earlier, Nevuchadnetzar made a statue. And everyone bowed down to the statue. All the Jews bowed down to the statue. Everyone that was there. And therefore they deserve to be punished. So the student said, Rabbeinu, if that's the case, so why weren't they destroyed? If they bowed down to Avodah Zarah, they should be destroyed. Said Rabban Shimon ben Yochai, said, no, because they only did it externally. They didn't do it internally in their hearts. Externally they bowed down because they were afraid. So God punished them externally. He said it will look like they will be killed, but in reality they'll be saved. Same way that the Jews did, so did HaKadosh Baruch Hu do to them. Midah keneged midah. That was Mordechai ve'Esther. The whole story of Purim was because of the fact that they bowed down in this celebration of the image of Nevuchadnezzar. What is that? Yeah, it's worse than Marit Ayin. It's actual Avodah Zarah. But at least God He calculates everything. It's not black or white. With HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's yes, you did a sin, but at the same time you had good intentions, you had something pure about it. Okay, so I'll reward you for the purity and I'll punish you for the negative. That's how God works. It's not all or nothing. Sometimes we can't do a full mitzvah, so we say, okay, it's better so I don't do it. No, do what you could do. If you can't pray the whole tefillah or the whole Birkat HaMazon, do a little bit. Do the first. So to show that I want to do this, and then a person gets credit as if he did it. So, who were the only three exceptions? Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah. They were the only ones that said, no. If it means we'll have to give up our lives, we're willing to give up our lives for God. We have no problem giving up our lives. Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah stood up. They were like that, you have a white tablecloth and there's a red stain on the tablecloth. They were so noticeable because everybody was lying down, and you see, you look in this big valley, everyone's lying down, no exceptions. 3 people just standing upright. And what were they doing? They were saying, we will not bow down, out loud as they can. We will not bow down to idols. We will not bow down to idols. If Nevuchadnetzar wants to kill us and he succeeds, it's only because of our sins. It's not because God can't save us. They kept saying that because they wanted not to be Hilul Hashem. Remember last week? We said they were afraid that if they would be killed, people will say, Nevuchadnezzar is stronger than the God of the Jews, because the God of the Jews couldn't save Hananiah, Mishael. So they said, no. It's because of our sins. Ba'avonotenu harabim. Our many sins, that's why God doesn't want to do a miracle for us. This is what they were saying. HaKadosh Baruch Hu was looking down. What do you think HaKadosh Baruch Hu felt at this time? On the one hand, he was very angry with all of the Jews. He was very angry with all of the Jews. But then he saw Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah, and with them he was happy. He said, I'm going to save all of the Jews because of Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah. If they would have bowed down, everybody would have been destroyed on the spot. He wouldn't have waited till Purim. But because of Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu spared the Jewish people. Now sometimes in life you have to think about this. Sometimes we look and we see great tzaddikim, and some people say they're tzaddikim, thank you. But others might look at them and say, well, they make us look bad to the non-Jews. Look, all of us are bowing down, all of us are listening to Nevuchadnezzar, but there's these 3 Jews that are putting us at risk by not bowing down. Now Nevuchadnezzar is going to want to kill all of us. And sometimes we think in the mentality of a non-Jewish mentality that we have to make all the non-Jews happy. And there's these 3 people that are Jewish that are not listening to Nevuchadnezzar, and we're all going to be in danger. No, it's the opposite. It's exactly the opposite. There were 3 people that were saving everybody else. From the outside, it looks like they're putting everybody in danger. It's like in the times of Mordechai, it was the same thing. It says when Mordechai didn't bow down to Haman, the Jews got scared. Haman's going to get angry with Mordechai. He's going to want to kill all the Jews. So they were upset at Mordechai. How come you didn't bow down? But in truth, they should have thought, what do I care more about? Upsetting Haman or upsetting HaKadosh Baruch Hu? What matters more? Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah said, to be afraid of Nevuchadnezzar, he's a human king. But to be afraid of God is the most important thing. And to do what God wants us to do. And therefore, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah stood up to Nevuchadnezzar. Because they were afraid of only one, and that's HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And because of them, all of the Jews were saved. The opposite of what all the Jews thought. The Jews thought that Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah were putting them in risk. They were saved because of Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah. But what happened in that case? It says that they weren't bowing down, so the Goyim, who they tattletale. You know, tattletale is not allowed. In the Torah, we call that Lashon Hara. A person is not allowed to tattletale unless there is a important benefit either for that individual or to save someone else. Meaning if you see somebody getting hurt and somebody is hurting somebody else and you can't help yourself, so to call somebody who's an adult, that's a mitzvah. That's an appropriate thing to do. It's not tattletaling. But if a person just starts saying bad things that other people do, when it's not to improve, it's just to say over to others and to make them look bad, that's called tattletaling. And that's asur to do. One is not allowed to do that. And the goyim, they don't care about what is permitted or not permitted. They tattletailed on Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah. They came to Nevuchadnezzar, and what did they say to him? They said, Nevuchadnezzar, these Jews are so disobeying you, instead of not coming to the party, they decided to come to the party and not bow down. Look how much disrespect they have towards you. Now, in truth, it wasn't to disrespect Nevuchadnezzar, it was to show respect to God. But they twist everything. They twisted the whole story to make it look that the Jews were rebelling against Nevuchadnezzar and that they were going to, threaten him and maybe overthrow him. And Nevuchadnezzar hears this and he becomes very angry. He says, summon these three individuals, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Where was Daniel? All of this was taking place. Where was Daniel? He was the second in command there. He was very high up. Nevuchadnezzar surely would have accepted Daniel. Nevuchadnezzar was afraid of having Daniel there. He sent him away before the whole thing began. He said, what's going to happen with Daniel? He's not going to bow down. And then, either I execute him, and if I execute him, I called him a god. I'm executing my own god, it makes me look bad. So Nebuchadnezzar didn't know what to do with Daniel. If he goes ahead and he doesn't bow down and I don't execute him, then that's also bad. So, you know what? Better I get rid of him. Get him out of the picture. So he sent Daniel away. There's different opinions where he sent him to. Some say that he sent him to a far country to build an irrigation system, to build like a canal where boats can travel through. Daniel was like the chief architect. He said Daniel was very smart, not just in Torah. He was very smart in a lot of the sciences. So he sent him away, gave him like an excuse, something to do, and that way he won't be in the picture. That's some opinions say. Other opinions say, he said, there's a special plant in Eretz Yisrael, I need you to bring it to Bavel and cultivate it. So he sent him to Eretz Yisrael for a short period of time until this event took place. Others say that he sent him to bring pigs from Egypt. Now that's why Nebuchadnezzar had his reasons to send away Daniel. But the question is, what about HaKadosh Baruch Hu? HaKadosh Baruch Hu had his real reason why he didn't want Daniel to be there. You want to know why? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted people to realize how great Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah were. They didn't need Daniel for their support. They didn't need Daniel to be there for miracles to happen. People would have said, if a miracle were to happen and Daniel was there, because of Daniel it happened. No. I want everyone to know Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah are great on their own right. So he sent away Daniel. Plus, it's not so sure that Daniel would have been saved. It's really not so sure. Because Daniel was used himself as a god. When Nebuchadnezzar heard of the interpretation of the dream, he bowed down to Daniel as if he was God. Now Daniel stopped him. He stopped him from doing it, but Nebuchadnezzar still worshipped him. And it could be that Daniel wouldn't have had a special protection. The judgment on Daniel would have been strong, that a miracle can't happen to him. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted him sent away. Nebuchadnezzar also wanted him sent away. Daniel wasn't in the picture for the time being.
Rabbi,
Yes?
can I ask a question? The way Rabbi just said it is like Nebuchadnezzar had one way of thinking and Hashem had one way of thinking. Why can't we say Hashem thought of that and he put this idea into another?
Also, it's also true. HaKadosh Baruch Hu orchestrated the events to take place in the way and the fashion that they did. So Nebuchadnezzar in his own mind thought that he was doing the calculation, but Lev Melachim B'yad Hashem, of course. Lev Melachim B'yad Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was guiding the events, as always is the case. Nebuchadnezzar calls in, he summons Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Now, we look at Nebuchadnezzar, he's an evil king. He doesn't have a problem killing people, right? He doesn't have a problem just executing them. But in truth, Nebuchadnezzar was smart. He didn't want to kill them. The king doesn't want to kill, first of all, his top advisors. These are people that are very high up. He's going to have to replace them with people that are not as good. They're not going to run it as well. People are going to start complaining, you took good people and you gave us bad people in their place. So he doesn't want to kill them. Also, they're friends of Daniel, and he loves Daniel. He doesn't want to be creating conflict between him and Daniel. Plus the fact that he also liked Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. They were very wise. So he enjoyed their wisdom. He wanted to see, you know what, let me give him another chance. Let me give him another chance. Maybe if I speak to them as individuals, not in front of a whole group, then they'll listen. So Nevuchadnezzar turns to them and says to them, he says, you know that you are commanded to bow down to this image that I set up, this golden image. You have to bow to it. And if you don't bow to it, then you're going to go ahead and burn in a furnace. I'm going to ignite a furnace. I'm going to burn all three of you inside this furnace. Let's try this again, he says to them. Play the music. Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah refused to bow down. They said no. At this point, Nevuchadnezzar tries to convince them with very powerful speech. But he said some things. He had three different arguments. Argument number one. The first one, he started ridiculing HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The first one was towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The second one was towards Am Yisrael, the nation. And the third one was towards the prophets. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he says, why do you think God can save you? Why do you think God will save you? I'm more powerful than your God. When I came to your God's land, the land of Eretz Yisrael, I destroyed his temple. Now that you are on my land, you don't think that I could overpower your God? Even on his land I was able to overpower him. Certainly on my own land. So Nevuchadnezzar said something very disrespectful towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah listened until the end. They didn't interrupt him. They let him finish. He continues. Starts speaking negatively about the Jewish people. He says, the Jewish people? Are you telling me you Jewish people don't bow down to idols? I know that one of the main factories of idol worship was in Yehuda, in Shomron, in Eretz Yisrael. How do I know? Because always they would send us people to buy different equipment to make the idols. I would sell to them, to Eretz Yisrael, I would sell to them this fine utensils to use to craft it, different brushes that you would paint Avodah Zarah. I knew that they were making Avodah Zarah. All of a sudden, when it comes to my idol, they refuse to bow down. But when it comes to producing idols, I would go to Egypt, I would go all over the world, and I would see statues that say on it, made in Israel, made in Eretz Yisrael. Are you telling me that you guys don't bow down to Avodah Zarah? You're the main manufacturer of Avodah Zarah. It's a tough argument. Really, Nevuchadnezzar was arguing, but it was coming from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu was putting those words into his mouth. Am Yisrael sinned. The reason Nevuchadnezzar was successful was because Am Yisrael really did worship. Sadly, many Jews worshipped idols. And since they worshipped the idols, Nevuchadnezzar was able to get all of this power. So he said, the Jews worshipped idols and now they don't want to worship. He looks at Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, now you don't want to worship? Why? Because it's an idol I made and not one that you made. The third thing he said is, doesn't it say, by your prophets, by your Moshe Rabbeinu, isn't he your main prophet? And doesn't he say in the Torah, Vavatem Sham Elohim, Ma'aseh Yedei Adam, that Moshe Rabbeinu says you will be kicked out of the land and you will worship other gods, but gods that are man-made gods. So your own prophet commanded you to bow down to my idols. Didn't Yirmiyah, only 20, 30 years beforehand, wear a yoke on his back, as we learned the first week, wear a yoke on his back and go to all the different kingdoms of Edom, of Egypt, of the Jews, and say, the reign of Nevuchadnezzar will be on top of us, and it is God's will to accept the reign of Nevuchadnezzar. So doesn't your God want you to listen to me? Isn't that what he commanded through the prophets? Aren't you obligated to listen to your prophets? He turns to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. You think about these arguments, at first they sound like they're very good arguments. But in truth, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, for their own honor, they didn't care. If it was just about their own honor, they would have remained silent, and they just wouldn't have bowed. But when he spoke bad about HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you can't remain silent. You have to speak up. So they said, HaKadosh Baruch Hu can save us, not just from a fire, He could save us from anything. The fact that you were able to destroy the temple, the Beit HaMikdash, was because God wanted it to be destroyed. Not because you were able to defeat God, but because God Himself commanded its destruction. If He would so desire to save us, He can save us from your hand in Israel and here in Bavel as well. They weren't afraid. Now to us, we don't understand what it means to speak up in front of such a person. Nevuchadnezzar was so powerful. When people would stand before him, they would shake. They wouldn't even be able to say a word. And Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah not only stood up to him, but responded to him without fear and without worry. Because what they were thinking is God. That's who I'm afraid of. Ivri anochi, what? Elokei hashamayim ani yareh. I'm afraid of the God of heaven. That's who they were afraid of. So the first thing they said, our God is more powerful than you, of course. Then they responded back. And they said, Nevuchadnetzar, Melech Nevuchadnetzar. You are a king, but you're also Nevuchadnetzar. What does that mean? When you command us to pay taxes, when you command us that we have to do this job, or that job, or we have to work in the government, we have to listen. That's what Yirmiyah was saying. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu was saying. That we have to go ahead and listen when you give us commands that have to do with things that are physical. But if you tell us to do a violation on something spiritual, you're not our king. You're just a simple Nevuchadnezzar, no different than any other person. You're a melech, you're a king, when it comes to physical things. When it comes to spirituality, we have only one king, and that's HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is Melech Malchei HaMelachim. We're not going to bow down. Even if you are to kill us, we will not bow down to your idol. And that is final, they said to Nevuchadnezzar. At this point, Nevuchadnezzar said, there's no convincing them. He told all of his guards that were standing around, these people are dangerous people. I want you to light the furnace 7 times more than you would otherwise. Put 7 times the wood. Make sure it's hotter than it ever was before. You ever seen when there's a small fire, you could stand close to it? When there's a very big fire, like the size of this room, you can't just stand this far away from it. You'll feel so much heat, it's dangerous. It could kill a person. You have to stand 40 feet away from the fire. You have to stand very, very far. The bigger the fire, the further you have to stand away from it. Sometimes you have to stand very, very far away from the fire. And Nevuchadnezzar made a huge, huge fire. He said, chain these people up. Now in those times, when a person was taken and arrested, the first thing they would do is they would take off all of his clothing to embarrass him, to make him shame in public, to give him shame in public. Now, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah were wearing very important garments. They were wearing royal garments. Aside from the regular clothes, there were these beautiful golden robes and golden hats that they were wearing. It was a miracle that happened. The guards, they were so afraid of the anger of Nebuchadnezzar, they thought that he wanted it to be done as soon as possible. They didn't even take a minute to take off their clothing. They just put them in chains right away and took them as fast as they can to the fire that they started putting wood, and were ready to throw him into the fire. Throw in Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. This is it. You get thrown into the fire. In 30 seconds, a person is dead. It's 30 seconds, he's dead. What happens? Happens in this stage. Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah are being taken. Now, are they fighting? Are they fighting? No. They feel honor. Baruch Hashem, I'm able to represent the King of all kings. They felt a love to God, a closeness to God. They weren't even upset. They weren't angry. They weren't worried. They just felt love. And almost like a chatan and a kala, let's say there's the groom and the bride comes to the groom with such happiness, they were coming towards the fire like they were ready to get so close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In Shamayim, a debate broke out. There was a whole disagreement. The angels started arguing amongst each other. One said, God, please let me save Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah. Another angel said, no, I'm going to be the one to save. We'll get back to what happened and what Kadosh Baruch Hu decided in a minute. But Nevuchadnetzar, all of a sudden, he sees Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah get thrown in. He looks into the fire. He notices there's 4 people. He says to the guards, didn't we throw in 3 people? How come I'm seeing 4? All of a sudden he looks carefully, sees Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah in the fire. Nothing's happening to them. He sees a 4th person, and all of a sudden a fear enters into his heart. I recognize this person. I remember him. Many years earlier, Nevuchadnezzar was one of the main generals of a different king. A king whose name was Sancheriv. Sancheriv was a very powerful man. He destroyed the 10 tribes, the 10 Jewish tribes of Shiftei Israel were decimated. They went into exile because Sancheriv and his armies, so powerful, so much might. The only kingdom that was left was the kingdom of Yehuda, of Shevet Binyamin and Shevet Yehuda. And at the time the king was Hiskiyahu HaMelech, who was a great righteous king, established so much Torah into Am Yisrael. We spoke about Hiskiyahu HaMelech Yehuda. Sancheriv brought his armies, 200,000 men, to a few thousand of Jews that lived in the barracks of Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim was a walled city. It was protected by a wall. But a wall against 200,000 people with chariots, with equipment, battering rams that can easily destroy walls, is a very dangerous situation. Sancheriv, before he attacked, he was lying in the city of Lachish. He was waiting and he sent a messenger. The messenger was an ally of his that was actually Jewish. His name was Rav Shakai. And he was a Jew that converted, so to speak. He became an ally of the Assyrians. It was Sancheriv. Sancheriv sent Rav Shakai, he said, go convince your brothers, go talk to them to surrender. Weaken their spirits. And in war, if you're not strong and confident that you're going to win, you'll easily lose the war. There's no way, there's no chance. So Rav Shakai came and he started instilling fear into the Jews and said, Hiskiah is leading you off the wrong path. You can have peace. Why are you following this old man? Why are you risking your lives? We destroyed all the other nations around you. We destroyed your own brothers. Don't you see your end is near? Look at the army surrounding you. And the Jews were a little bit shaken. But the one thing, they were very much still very strong because Hiskiah taught them. For years, taught them Torah, taught them trust in God. Hiskiah had such a high level trust in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And he made sure that the nation themselves had that strong bind to make sure that nobody is able to defeat us if we don't defeat ourselves. And the Jewish people at that time were very, very solid. The people of Yerushalayim were very strong in Torah. So Sancheriv actually at that time left Yerushalayim. He was doing a siege around the city and he left with his armies. Why? Because there was a country called Cush. Cush was leading an uprising together with the Egyptians. Sancheriv went to attack them and he didn't leave anybody behind. So the Jewish people finally had a chance to leave the city and gather some produce, gather much needed things, and come back into the city because they weren't able to leave for a long time. Sancheriv, did he succeed in the war against the Kushim? He did. He defeated all of them and the Egyptians and took all of their gold and all of their silver and all of their people and went back surrounding the city of Yerushalayim. Before he got there, his stargazers looked up in the stars and they said, if we attack Yerushalayim today, we will defeat Yerushalayim. If we wait, we won't defeat Yerushalayim. Sancheriv heard this. He was 10 days away from Yerushalayim. He said, hasten the army. We're going to Yerushalayim and we're going to get there today. The armies traveled so fast, no breaks, no anything. By the time of the afternoon, they already arrived very, very close to Yerushalayim, to the city called Nov. Nov Ira Kohanim. Sancheriv says, build me a tower. I want to look into the city. The soldiers are tired. They traveled a long time. Sancheriv looks at Yerushalayim. This is the city I should be scared of? I'm not afraid of these people. I'll defeat them easily. We'll wait till tomorrow. Sancheriv said, the army is tired. This is not the opportunity to fight a war. He made a major mistake. They told him, no, we have to go today. He said, no, I'm not afraid of these people. Why was he making such a mistake? He was there in the city of Nov 200 years before, 300 years before. Shaul HaMelech wiped out all of the Kohanim of the city of Nov. The day that Sancheriv arrived in Nov was the 14th day of Nisan. That day, you needed the Kohanim in mass. All of the Kohanim would work in Beit HaMikdash. It was the busiest day of Beit HaMikdash, because that's when everybody of Am Yisrael brings Korban Pesach. So you need all of the Kohanim. Now, because the city of Nov, which was a city full of Kohanim, was wiped out, there was judgment in heaven. On that day, there was judgment in heaven that if anybody attacks from the city of Nov, Yerushalayim, he'll succeed. Sancheriv should have attacked. He would have won. He waited. He waited another day to attack. Now, the 15th, we know that's Pesach. Pesach is when miracles happen to the Jews. Even Rav Shakai, who was a Rasha, he was an evil person, he said, no, Sancheriv, this is a big mistake. We cannot attack today. We're not allowed. No. The Jews are going to have miracles. This is dangerous. It's dangerous. Sancheriv said, what are you talking about? Look at this city. Look at our armies. We're going to defeat it easily. I've defeated much bigger nations, much bigger empires. Don't be worried. He dispelled it. That night of the 15th of Pesach, Hizkiyahu in the walled city. Imagine now you're living in the walled city. You know the end is near. Tomorrow, it could be you wake up tomorrow, no more life. Everything around you, who's going to go into captivity, whose family members are going to survive. Am Yisrael saying the Hallel like nothing, like there was no problems. They were singing and they were joyous and they were celebrating Pesach, the holiday of miracles. That night, Sancheriv with his 200,000 men, HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent Malach Gavriel. The angel Gavriel was sent. Go distort the plans of Sancheriv. Gavriel started a fire. The fire was so massive, it was so encompassing, it surrounded the armies of Sancheriv. They had nowhere to escape. Every single person was completely singed and destroyed, died, except 200,000 people Gavriel killed, except for 5 people who survived. Sancheriv, his 2 sons, Nevuchadnetzar and Nebuzaradan. Nevuchadnezzar remembered Gavriel. I saw him. I saw what he was able to do. Gavriel is the angel that is the minister of the fire. Nevuchadnezzar sees him together with Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah, and he gets the chills. He remembers the events and how he had to escape from the fire and how he barely managed to survive. Sancheriv ended up on his own, going back, and his own 2 sons ended up killing him because they thought he was going to bring them as a sacrifice. They ended up killing Sancheriv themselves. And Nebuchadnezzar was left alive to be that sort of seed that's planted to eventually destroy Beit HaMikdash. So he knew Gavriel. He's seen him before, and he sees him in the fire. What was Gavriel doing in the fire? So in Shamayim, I said that the angels started arguing. There's an angel called Yulkami. When Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah were about to be thrown into the fire, Yulkami, this angel comes up to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and says, I am the angel that is in charge of ice and water. Let me go save Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. I will extinguish the fires. Gabriel turns to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and says, no, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if the fires are extinguished, the miracle is not going to be so great. I am the minister of fire. I can control the fire, where the fire will remain hot on the outside, but cool on the inside. It will be an even greater miracle. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Gabriel, you're right. You're going to go down. Save Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Gabriel, before he heads down, he says, thank you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Your promise has been kept, and your word, as always, has been fulfilled. What was Gabriel referring to? Many, many, many years beforehand, there was another person that you might remember that was thrown into a fire. Avraham Avinu, by Nimrod. And as he was being cast into the fire, Gabriel pleaded before God, let me go save him. And God said, no, I will save him. Avraham yahid be'olamo v'ani yahid be'olami. Avraham is one. There's one person in all of humanity that is Avraham Avinu. Nobody was like him. Nobody believed in God like Avraham Avinu believed in God. And I am yahid be'olami. I will personally save Avraham Avinu. But Gabriel, don't worry. Because of your good intentions, I will allow you to save the descendants of this holy man, the descendants of Avraham Avinu. And at this point in time, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, who were the descendants of Avraham Avinu, Gabriel was given the right to go ahead and to save them. And finally, the promise and the guarantee that God gave him was fulfilled. So Gabriel was in the fire, cooling it down on behalf of Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. All the chains were burnt. Them and their clothing were 100% clean, no ashes, no anything. They were fine. They were able to be in the fire. And everybody on the outside that threw them in were consumed by the flames. People saw this from the outside and they were shocked. Nevuchadnetzar sees this and he's inspired. Wow! The power of the Almighty HaKadosh Baruch Hu to save such great tzaddikim, such great individuals. Be'ezrat Hashem, next week we'll see what happens as the aftermath of these events. Baruch Adonai Le'olam, Amen ve'amen.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.